Hey there, I'm Amanda and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you have been following me for a while. In today's video, we are going to paint a swan. So this is the painting that we're going to do in today's video, and I've got something extra for you. If you want to download a template that you could use, it looks something like this. And you can put it down on your paper or on your canvas and trace out the outline of the painting. Then you can grab that in the description down below. This is going to be a voiceover, which is something that I don't do very often, but I'm going to give it a try and see if it works. And I hope you have fun painting your swans. Okay, let's get started with our swan, and I'm going to be using several different colors on this one, but we're going to start with some white and burnt umber, which is a dark brown, and that's going to give me a cream color that I'm going to use first. So on the actual painting that you're watching me paint right now, I don't have all the details in, like the background as far as the mountains and the trees and the lily pads and all that. I just put in a little rough sketch myself, but on your template that you can download and use, there's going to be more details. I just kind of added these details in as I was going. So I'm blocking in some color with the burnt umber mixed with white, and that's what's going on here. And now we're going to pick up some blue and white, and I'm using manganese blue. I still have a little bit of that cream on my brush, so it's mixing in there. And that is what we're going to use for our sky color. So far we've used titanium white, burnt umber, and manganese blue. We're going to put in the shadow around the bottom of the swan, and this is blue mixed with that dark burnt umber, which is a dark brown, and I mixed in some white with it also, and then just kind of made the water around it. So I'm just really mixing the colors on my brush as I'm brushing it, and I'm really not thinking so much about all the details. I'm just blocking in the color. But just try to keep some darker areas underneath the body of the swan, and you can see my palette now, and I'm mixing a little bit of dark, a little bit of light, and just going back and forth and adding that in there. put some cream color in the swan body. So when you're painting something that's white, it's not usually white. And the white is usually what you use to make the lightest highlights on it. So if it's a flower, or if it's a white bird, or anything that appears to be white, you're going to want to start with a dark color underneath and then build up those layers of lighter shades on top. And for this right here, what I'm using is a mixture of white and burnt umber, and there's a little tinge of blue in there also. So I'm still using those same 3 colors we've been using the whole time. I'm just mixing it a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, and kind of following those shapes for the wings. I'm not thinking a whole lot about details when I'm doing this part right here. You just saw me pick up some bright white out of my container of white paint, and that's what I'm putting in now. So I'm thinking more about the shape of the feathers and just layering that lighter color on top. But the darker color underneath is still going to show through in some areas, and that's what's going to give you the depth that you need. So you need to have value in your paintings. You need to have darks, lights, and those medium values in between also. Now I just picked up some black on my brush, and I'm going to put in the really dark area right there on the head. And I'm using a flat, smallish flat brush. Now to begin with, I was using a little bit wider flat brush, but now I'm just using a smaller flat brush, and that's helping me to get into those little areas. I'm also going to open up some orangey brown, which is burnt sienna, and that's going to go on the beak. Now it's time to add some highlights to our water. So I just picked up some white, and there's still a little bit of blue on my brush, but not very much. So it's not a bright white, but it's pretty white. So as I'm taking a look here, I'm thinking I need darker values. So I just got out some more burnt umber, and we're going to put that in those hills in the background. And as I was painting this, I was sort of intuitively putting it all together. I knew I wanted to paint a swan, but I didn't have the entire composition straight in my head when I started, and I do this all the time. So I'm putting in this darker value here, and as I'm doing it, I'm realizing that I think I want to add some like a tree line in the background, and you're going to see me do that in just a minute. Doing this where you're kind of cutting around an image with the brush is a little bit tricky. So if you would rather put in that dark value and then paint the swan on top, you could. But this is just my process. This is how I paint, and this is what happens when I get started and I change my mind, or I can see things as I'm painting that I may not predict. So if I try to put together a whole composition and then pick out all my colors and then start painting, that takes away the fun for me, or the challenge or the adventure in painting something. So I kind of tweak it and change it as I'm painting, and a lot of times I don't even know where it's going to end up. So painting around things and cutting in around like flowers or trees, or in this case the head of this swan is going to get painted around a lot of times, but that's just the way that I work. And here's what we have so far. And this is where I decided I needed to add some green. So I'm using Cad Yellow and Mars Black. That's my favorite mixture to make green. And so I'm going to mix that up here on my palette, and we're going to start with the lily pads, because that's what came to my mind first. So we're going to put those all in here, and you're going to see me layer green on green on green on green and different values of green. And now I've decided to add that tree line that you see in the finished product. So I go in with the same green that I used for those lily pads, and we're just gonna kind of put in some dark value here with the green. And to make it lighter or darker, I just add a little more yellow. That brightens it up. A little more black dulls it down, but also makes it a darker value. And if you want to add a little white in there, that's also going to, it kind of grays it out a little bit and desaturates it, but that gives it a pretty almost pastel green color. So I'm just putting in all these little ideas of a tree line here, and you're also going to see me change the land line, if you want to call it that. So where I'm going to bring down that area of grassy, I don't know what, I just made it up as I was going, kind of down on the sides of that straight line that comes across there. So see how I'm pulling that down, and I made it look more like the bank of a lake or something. So I added a little more interest and made it a little more, I don't know, gave it a little more something. That's what I mean when I'm saying that I do this kind of intuitively. I don't know why I decided to do that. I just did, because as I was painting, I was thinking, this looks too flat. It needs a little something else right here. So I started pulling down that land, and you have to be a little brave to do this kind of work, but you just know that if it doesn't turn out right and you pull the green down into the water, you can just let the green dry and paint over it with blue if you don't like it. So that's the way that I work anyway. And then I decided to add some of that green in the little hillsides here. I go back and forth and I layer things and I change things, and when I see that I need a darker value, I put it in. If I need a lighter value, I put it in, and I just go back and forth with things until I feel like it's the way that I want it to look. And then we're back at the bottom working on the lily pads again, and I'm just throwing in a few little spots that are not quite so detailed. Also, I don't think I mentioned that the flowers that I put on the lilies on the lily pads are done with the same color that I used for the beak which is burnt sienna, and it's mixed with some white, and it makes that really pretty blush pink color. So I'm going back, most of the white on the Swan has dried now, so I'm just going back in there and lightening up some more areas, because acrylic paint is going to dry a little darker. That's just the way it is going to be. So you have to go back in there and change things up. And I have some green mixed in my brush with my white there, but it doesn't bother me when that happens because there's green in the painting, and it could be a reflection from one of the lily pads onto the Swan. So that is okay. And I'm using those quick little swipes to try to make a little more movement in those feathers and make it look more realistic. Be sure when you're painting your Swan that you leave some lines there. You can see the line underneath that wing, and the line of dark, it's not really very dark, but it's a different value that's there underneath that wing that is facing us, and kind of on the back also. Notice where I left some darker areas, and try to leave those lines of dark gray in there, and that will cause that separation between different parts of the little body of the Swan. Now I'm going back and just adding some highlights to the edges of the pond and finishing it up. Okay, so we've got it all, you can see my hand there, we've got it all finished up. I hope you enjoyed painting with me, and if you would like a list of colors and you want to download the template, you can find all that down in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week.